Mr. Woods, thanks very much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Simon. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, good. Busy week. Market seems to be a bit more positive this side of Christmas, so no major complaints. Sun shining somewhat today, so yeah, all good. Thanks for asking. And you all good?
Yeah, all very well, thanks. Down on the south coast today, doing the call from a family home. So yeah, thanks for having me. All good.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So look, today we're talking about a number of different things, but I wanted to introduce yourself to kind of this series of episodes. I mean, we've known each other now in different guises for 5, 6, 7, 8 years maybe across my career. Seeing you done some awesome stuff, and always a man with lots of wisdom to share, and contributing to people's careers. So thanks for taking the time. Sure, from your busy schedule. I guess the title of today, what we were doing is unlocking EMEA market success, strategies for team building and growth. If anybody knows David Woods, you've seen his background in the MarTech mobile sort of software space, spanning a good amount of years, some really impressive companies, like disruptive companies as well, which we'll kind of dig into a little bit later. But I think, that viewpoint could be really valuable to people starting their careers, people midway through their careers, and people almost peers to David today. So I guess for people that haven't tuned into these episodes, I think we are at the dizzy heights of maybe 12 or 13 episodes now. So the reason why we started it last summer was over the last 10 years, I've built a pretty good network in the software and MarTech space with different sort of subject matter experts and thought leaders. And I really wanted to try and sort of bring some of that knowledge into a series of episodes around key topics that can create a bit of a community and also help people out there on their journeys. Even if just even one of these episodes, helps one person, I think there's definitely value to be had here. So we're inviting people to cover different topics. So today's all about go-to-market. But no, previously, if you look through the different channels where we post this, it's stuff around pre-sales. I'm going to be doing some cool stuff around marketing, outbound sales engines, RevOps, sales enablement, and all the stuff in between. And we're talking about both the personal journeys of the people, high level, and some of their experiences across these topics. So we'll try and frame some questions to try and extract all of that lovely information and, share some great little golden nuggets. So without further ado, if we jump in. So I've given you a tiny little bit of an intro there, but for the people that don't know you, David, would you mind just running us through a little bit about your background and career today, please?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, unfortunately, coming up to the early mid-40s now. So that's an interesting point in life. So a couple of decades in sales now, but probably actually worth taking a very quick step back because I think it's helped my career a lot. I did media journalism down at Bournemouth Uni. And I think some of that I learned at uni that I was taught there, like stepped me in a very good place for sales going forward. I think a very good journalist is someone who does a large amount of research, first seeks to understand before being understood, and puts a lot of effort into research, into understanding before writing an article. And I think and asks a lot of questions. And I think if we look at good salespeople nowadays, what do good salespeople do? They ask a lot of questions. So interestingly enough, I did media journalism, and my degree and aim and goal back then was very much to become a journalist. I mean, if you met 18-year-old David, I would have told you absolutely, I'm going to be a journalist. I'm going to be working for a leading newspaper. Perhaps a wartime correspondent was a passion of mine at one point. But anyway, my first job in Bournemouth after university was working for 2CR FM. A local radio station back then. I'd get in very early in the morning and help write the news. The internet was exploding at the time and radio sales were dipping. So they decided to take all the radio news journalists and writers and centralize them all in an area of the country that I wasn't willing to relocate to. So they said, hey, how about taking a role as an SDR or in radio sales? And I thought, you know what, I'll do that for a year or two. And here we are, sort of about 21, 22 years later, and I'm still very much in the tech sales. But it's been phenomenal for me. I'm happy to talk more about some of the companies I've worked for in a second, if that's of interest. But I think even prior to working for journalism and in the degree, I was always very much a bit of a geek, a bit of a nerd who loved computers and technology. I mean, my first piece of technology was a BBC Micro. I had a Spectrum as well. So, they're from the kind of start of technology, really. So having the ability to combine my career and my passion in sales, my passion for understanding and learning and asking questions, and passion for tech, because I've been very blessed to sort of blend all those sort of interests and passions into a career so far.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. And you mentioned there just about like the innovative companies. So, no doubt, I mean, from where I'm sat and look at the brands, a little bit about the story from an outsider looking in, super cool. Like companies like PGI, MEDERIC, POC Commerce, or POC, I can't remember what they were called at the time, but Lean Plum, and then most recently Data AI, or the old app Annies, we'll find out in a minute. But the people that for the listeners out there, how did you come across those businesses, and was there any particular common themes of why you decided to join those particular business amongst many?
Do you know what? I'm not a believer in luck, Simon. I'm a believer in you make your own luck. But I was very lucky to find PGI. I think after a few years of radio sales, which is done in Bournemouth. I mean, I grew up in London, so I was keen to relocate to London, and I actually worked with a phenomenal recruiter who introduced me to Premier Global Services. And PGI is probably a brand not known to many. However, back in 2007, it was a very important company. It was arguably the world's largest provider of communication solutions, of conference calling, web calls, collaboration technologies. We were reselling the likes of Adobe Connect and very early versions of MS Teams and that sort of technology. And you have to bear in mind that this is a point in the world where the economic crash in 2007, so businesses were looking to reduce costs, and costs involved traveling, meeting, flying. So it's a great time to be in a great company. So PGI was really, I spent about 6 years there, about 2.5 years as an enterprise sales guy, which I'd love to talk about that role a bit more in detail, because it taught me so much. 360 role, had to do everything from sourcing the customers, the research, to the pitches, to account management for a year. So you just learned so much, bang in the middle of London and St. Paul's. But actually a company that's recently been acquired for $1 billion US. So it was a super successful time there. So I definitely cut my teeth at PGI. And I think another reason I say the word lucky was that I probably put the effort into finding the company. What I didn't realize at the time is how important it is that you choose, if you can, choose to work for great leaders. I think great leaders can have a huge effect on the direction of someone's career. If you can find a good leader to work with and take it in the right, and they are supportive and helping you, that definitely happened at PGI. I mean, David Gosling and Kelly Lowe, who have been prominent throughout my career, have really helped. And PGI, that they were two of the key leaders there. So I started at PGI as Enterprise AE. And funnily enough, I joined a sales team that was very different. I joined a sales team that was very transactional in that sort of communications. We're big in the fintech space then as well. And a lot of these salespeople weren't doing what I was doing, which was asking a lot of questions, first seeking to understand, being understood. So much so that after 3 months, I was told my probation was going to be extended, and I might not make it because I hadn't sold anything in 3 months and had to be extended. But lo and behold, some large deals started rolling in because I was putting in groundwork to close larger deals and asking questions rather than just pitching straight away. So I had a great time at PGI. I had 2 years there as 2.5 years as an AE, a President's Club winner, and then off into a management role. I think many companies can often do the right or make the mistake perhaps of promoting a great salesperson or a good salesperson into a leadership role. And that probably came a bit too early for me. So my first year was me trying to do the job for 11 different AEs, when really I learned so much recently more about the power of delegation and coaching. But I learned a lot in those sort of 3 years as well. After, we'll fly through the other roles a bit quicker. I think after PGI, the leadership team at PGI actually moved to a company called Vocus, and then Kelly Lowe, who I mentioned earlier, Kelly mentioned to me that there was an opportunity to go there and lead their SDR team. And I think it was interesting because for me, rightly or wrongly, as much as I loved PGI, the technology was exciting, but it didn't particularly excite me. Where the technology at Vocus, which was MarTech, which was new at this time, really, or this brand new marketing technology coming up. Vocus had this great solution. Vocus is known as a PR company, really, but they launched a new tool called the Vocus Marketing Suite, which allowed you to control your press releases, your social media tools, your social SEO, search engine optimization, and your and other tools as well, all in one place. It was like a great marketing suite, and they needed someone to come in and build an SDR team initially, and then once we had enough business, to then take over the sales team. And we did it very successfully for sort of 2-3 years, and as has been the story in many roles that I've had, to a successful point where the company got acquired after 2 to 3 years. After Vocus, I'd spent sort of 5 years in leadership, and I'd read a lot about leadership coaching, training, and I thought, you know what, perhaps it's time to go and put some of this into practice and find what I'm telling all my AEs to do is actually going to go and work. So I decided to go back into enterprise sales, and started working for MarTech, just a phenomenal e-commerce brand, still very much around. It was recently bought by I think Kibo, and then they've come back standalone as well. And really had the privilege of working with some great people there, some great salespeople. Truly enterprise, first exposure to the things like MEDERIC and what have you. Then we were going out to leading European retail brands predominantly, and some other brands, but helping them with on-site personalization and conversion. And I really think I often hear that when people are looking for salespeople, they shouldn't interview managers, because people are perhaps managers are slightly out of date from sales then. But I think that role really proved that sort of disproved that theory, because I had 5 years in management. I'd joined calls, I'd coached, I'd been able to listen to so many different calls and see what was right and see what was wrong in different sales processes, that when I was able to come into MarTech, I had not just my personal learning experience of 5 years, I had the experience of 20 other salespeople. And yeah, I just had a phenomenal time at MarTech. A couple of years at President's Club there, closed some brilliant brands, well known, worked with some phenomenal retailers across the UK, L'Oreal, The Body Shop, Boohoo, Misguided, the list goes on and on. And it was a really exciting time back then, because e-commerce was booming. And I think, it was the new frontier. And many brands were looking for how to get the competitive edge to nudge that needle in conversion rates and average order value. So it's a really exciting time. But once again, as I mentioned before, the company did so well, acquiring happened, and I was decided to look somewhere else. And then there was a phenomenal company called POC, still doing amazingly well. POC had a great idea, led by some great tech founders. They realized that it was very hard for retailers to launch apps. So if you want to launch an app, typically you need to have your own in-house developers, or perhaps you go and work with an agency. But apps, require multiple updates, new technologies. They need to be based upon very sturdy technological foundations. So POC made this first sort of path for apps, platform as a service, where a retailer could come into POC and take perhaps their APIs that they were plugging into their e-commerce website for their stock and price management, plug them into POC, and POC could have you a phenomenal app up and running really quickly. And POC apps were they are great, high quality apps. So much respect for that company. They've just run their annual App Rising event, which I hope was a great success for them, and a phenomenal time there. I think after a few years at POC, I was very much keen to get back into the leadership space. I was approached by an American company called Lean Plum, actually based out of Amsterdam in EMEA, and was asked to head up there and build out their UK and Ireland teams. And I think after about 5 years again in sales, I was keen to get back into that build mode. Learn once again everything that I had from all those different companies, from leadership, from sales, and go back. And I've always been a builder, even going back to the games that I used to play as a kid. I was playing the Sim Cities rather than the Dooms of the world. I was more interested in building successful things. The opportunity to go into Lean Plum to do that was amazing. Once again, about 3 years later, Lean Plum was acquired by a great company called Clever Tap. Love the guys at Lean Plum and Clever Tap. We work really closely together and talking about some events upcoming in a not too distant future as well. So excited to see where those events can go as we partner more. But a great relationship with those companies. But then data AI, really. I spent a little bit of time at Unity, and I have all the respect in the world for Unity. But Unity was an organization for me at the time, in the business division that I was in at Unity, where your team was managing accounts, really. I think, and our predominant method of sale was selling licenses or perhaps some professional services. But it's a difficult company to build and sell, because the company is already big already. And if you're going into a studio that has 10 developers and they have 10 Unity licenses, you can be the world's greatest sales team, the world's greatest offering, but you can't sell them an 11th license because there's no need for it. So I think Unity was probably I met some great people there. Laura Palmer, Dan DeCoombe, just incredible inspirational leaders that I still connect with now. Looking forward to dinner with Dan next week. But it wasn't the place for me to continue to grow. Like I said, I like to build things, and I was very much managing a house or a car that was already built. And I get great satisfaction about designing great cars and putting cars together, as it were. So when the opportunity came to join Data AI, or as App Annie is it now, that was just super exciting. I mean, I joined at a time, and I think you might be asking me about this shortly, where App Annie was evolving, changing. Here was an established brand that was about to add phenomenal things to its book to really accelerate the business, and they wanted someone to come in and help support that EMEA growth. And I was very privileged because it was a company that I had a huge respect for, and really very appreciative of the opportunity to come in there. And we're having a phenomenal time with the organisation at the moment.
Fantastic to hear. Yeah, no, fantastic to hear. I mean, they are the premier player in that space. I think it still are. Yeah. So, you mentioned there they had was it as you joined the rebrand happened, or was it just prior or just after? What was the time?
Yeah, I would say as it was happening, really. I think App Annie had been around for around 10, 11 years. And it was February 2022 that App Annie rebranded. It was a rebrand for me that felt very appropriate. I think we still had a lot of, we even go to trade events now, and some customers will come up, so I loved it being called App Annie. And App Annie is obviously app analytics. And our focus is still very much app analytics and being the leader in that space. And we put a phenomenal amount of efforts into ensuring that we have just awesome data and awesome service to be loved by our clients. But the company was growing and pivoting into looking into providing data analytics from multiple digital sources: web, console, OTT, streaming services. When we started, there was really only mobile and app. But now we're seeing data come at us from so many different angles. And so we're looking to ensure that our customers have access to that data. And also, data can be quite hard to get a hold of nowadays. I think data isn't something that's accessible for obvious reasons as it used to be. So therefore, we're leveraging the power of AI to enhance our offering. And we really are the first company to combine consumer and market data to fuel digital insights, whilst at the same time empowering the power of artificial intelligence. And that for us is unified data AI. So the name change made sense. I think it was difficult because many customers had a huge affinity to the old brand. But the market's definitely adapt now, but we still have many people, as I mentioned, come up and say they love the old name.
Yeah, no, great. I never knew the story behind it. It makes total sense. Yeah. And the market's responded well, though, looking back at it retrospectively.
I mean, our customers are still enjoying the same great platform, but with multiple enhancements, as all great tech providers will do. We're always continuing to improve our offering with more data, with more reports, with more accuracy. And I think now they have more access to this. They're seeing the value of it. But I think the data AI is also just the brand growing up as well. We needed to. I think otherwise we would have had the perception you're just an app analytic provider, and we're so much more.
Yeah,
we have a phenomenal team of professional service people who can, advise not just on the data, but how to understand, how to interpret that data, how to use that data effectively as well. So I think we are data more than just analytics.
Yeah, I think that was super cool, giving us the story of management, individual contributor back into management. That's an unusual sort of track, but nothing's linear in this world, is it? But that's really cool. Look, I mean, you've obviously made the transition twice back into management. I guess you tell the people that are listening to this a little bit about that transition. Any experiences and learnings from doing that a couple of times. That would be really helpful.
Do you know what, Simon? I think I have this internal battle inside of me, which I prefer more. There's a huge sense of satisfaction when you're an AE of closing a great deal, and there's an electric excitement feeling to closing these great brands that you put so much effort into, especially ones that you've researched from day one, and you've gone out, you've prospected, you've built relationships with, you've truly understood this company's, their organizations, their pain points, the metrics that are important to them, and then you've helped them build a solution, and to build all that way from to close is truly really exciting. But then I also really enjoy. I think that it's when we get so much experience, it's great to be able to coach and pass that on, and seeing seeing people be really successful that you're working with is phenomenal as well. And I get great satisfaction out of both of those. I must admit that there's a part of me every now and then you see these great new technologies and companies coming out. You think, God, I'd love to go and sell that. But then I think also, I think sometimes it's important to take the step back and do that occasionally. Obviously, there comes a certain point in the career where you want to just focus on leadership and building it. But I think there's great advantages to going back into sales, or at least even at a VP where you might have line managers in between you and your sales guys, still staying very close to the sales process, close to the market. My aspirations are very much to land a CRO role in that sort of next 5 to 10 years. But I think even then, I'm going to want to be a CRO who's really close to the customers and close to the sales process, whether that's being directly involved or using great tools like Aviso or Gong or what have you to stay close to these. I think that's my advice really is never stay too far away from your salespeople. I think I get so much time and value and useful knowledge from just asking my sales team what's going on out there. And I think so some of the younger sales guys, I'm a great believer in the power of experience. I think a hot topic on LinkedIn recently has been ageism. Should we not be employed? A lot of young companies that perhaps have this cutoff of an age, and I think that's wrong. I think there's so much value in experience, but there's also great value in youth, right? I think there's some of the young people that I'm working with now are coming to me with ideas and concepts of how to outreach, which I never thought about. So yeah, I think it's important just to stay close to your team, stay close to the market, stay close to your customers.
Yeah. Okay. And are there any sort of guiding principles or things that you've learned over the years that you sort of try and distill or bring into your teams that drive those results and that high performance?
Yeah, sure. I think there's, for sure. I think having a plan is always the most important thing. But I think prior to deploying any plan, you need to first be seeking to understand to be understood, right? I think I was speaking to a CRO recently. He was talking about how he had a blueprint for success that stood him very well, and that's great if that's worked out. But I'm a great believer there is you can deploy blueprints and structures and sales plays that undoubtedly deliver great success. But I think it's really important to first seek to understand an organization as much as possible first, and then sort of build go to market strategies from there. And I think to do so, you need to be understanding that deeply the company's proposition, the TAM, the competitive landscape, ASPs, and really a deep understanding of what has and hasn't worked in the past. And only then can we begin to have an approach. So guiding principles, I think, firstly, one is to always be open-minded. And this actually comes from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which is it's an old book now, but stands the test of time. First, seeking to understand, being understood is an excellent principle. I think talking about guiding principles are definitely, I think, is to the first thing of any organization is to really understand your target market, appropriate target market. And I think before you can have a blueprint or any guiding principles that work, you need to understand that, because it's going to be different at every company. I mean, I've definitely every company I've walked into has had a very different blueprint for success, and that's important. For example, at POC, we were just selling purely into retailers across Europe, and therefore you need a very different sort of structure process than you would at Data. We're selling into multiple verticals with a much bigger market. I think in terms of guiding principles, I think building great processes, doing the basics brilliantly, and then continuing to look to optimize them is key. And I definitely want to touch on that optimization more. I think, but a few areas where I think we can all improve. One area I believe all organizations could optimize is their time management of their sales teams. As managers and leaders, we focus so much on metrics like calls, emails, opportunities at a certain stage, progression rates, close rates. But one area that I rarely see any focus on is time, and it's such an easy win. I think if you look at lawyers or consultants, they know how much they're spending of every minute of the day, clearly, because they need to bill it back. But from there, they can really understand what their day looks like and how they can optimize times. And I think especially in this remote hybrid world, how many of us really know the minutes of how we're spending our own day and how our teams are spending their day as well? So I think guiding principles which broad word, but we can truly understand how people are working time-wise and begin to optimize that. We can see huge improvements there. I think understanding where AEs are losing hours, how we can drive efficiency to get an extra 20%. In fact, I've seen by understanding how people's time works and their time management, we have to drive huge 50 plus efficiencies in those sort of areas as well. I think another area I'm very passionate about is consistent communication and development. I think it's very important that we spend quality time with our teams, individually and groups, to talk, learn, develop more and improve. I think very much, when I started at PGI, it was very much everyone on their own, fighting for their own success, wanting to be that number one out there. But I think nowadays, gone is that lone salesperson wanting to be number one. Clearly, you want to be successful, but I think more than ever in the modern world, we're understanding that we win more by sharing knowledge, collaborating. And sometimes as leaders, this is a really easy win. We don't even need to drive this. We just need to enable and empower our teams to sit, talk, communicate, and help each other out. And in fact, some of the meetings that I try and structure on a weekly basis for the team are just not for them to inform me, but to inform each other what they're doing and telling each other where they're struggling and working collaboratively to sort of solve those problems. I think another mindset, I'm trying to think of guiding principles that aren't too obvious here, but another one I think really is important is mindset. It's so key. I think if you look at in every performance-based sport or business, confidence plays a massive factor in people's success. For my sins, a Tottenham fan, if a striker of the team is playing with confidence, then they're much more likely to win. And we see that everywhere, and it's a really valuable life skill, confidence as well. And I think it's the leadership team who are able to install such a high level of confidence or destroy that confidence in their teams. But the ones that install a high level of confidence are the ones that see the best results. The leaders that lead by criticism or fear of failure will see high staff turnover, low morale, and that will then that negativity gets fed into their clients and their prospects as well. I think if there's one guiding principle we should have as leaders, it's to be able to lift, support, and encourage our people. And I guarantee the leaders that do that, you'll see a huge knock-on effect. Be supportive, never be critical. Obviously, if we find areas that is wrong, let's work to improve them, but in encourage, motivating, and sort of correct manner.
Great answer. Yeah, I can feel the kind of culture you're trying to build in your teams, which is great, right? I think so many challenges, isn't there, to get all of that like harmoniously correct within the remote setting. I think, but some great insight there. I guess in the current climate, I mean, there's no two ways to describe it. It's a slightly challenging time for software in general, but in the current climate, and probably with finite amount of resource, lots of people are talking about, I hate the term, but doing more with less, right? Obviously trying to optimize and drive efficiency, certainly across headcount wherever possible. How have you kind of in that setting tackled the kind of exciting but also fragmented EMEA opportunity? I think your remit is broader than EMEA, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just talk about EMEA just for this question, please.
My remit is EMEA, for sure.
Okay.
That's an ever-evolving marketplace, right, with multiple challenges and obviously all over the place currently. And forever changing. Just to go back to that, doing more with less, I think a great way to, this is a challenge, the more with less, that every organisation is facing at the moment. And my recommendation there is that time management piece that I mentioned earlier. I think back when I had sales teams of 11, in fact, at Vocus or a couple of companies, multiple teams of 11. I'm confident looking back in those days that we were wasting, we were probably only 50, 60, 70% efficient time-wise. So as your teams reduce, think about how they're spending their days and how certain tasks and that will take a long time, how you can take that time and optimize that and make it easier. So I think there is great ways to do more with less. But I appreciate your topic today on this question was around, the fragmented EMEA market. I think many SaaS companies are facing this challenge, right? Especially, I spent a lot of my career in startups. PGI, not a startup. Data Eye, not a startup, but one that's very fast-moving and agile and responds to market changes very quickly. So it can often feel like a startup, and you have the ability to affect change very quickly here. But definitely Monetate, POC, Lean Plum, all very much that sort of startup feel. And I think they're all of them were trying to work out how to break into the EMEA market successfully. And the EMEA markets are all very different. I think, and they all have very different challenges. You see the challenges selling into Russia and Ukraine at the moment. I mean, even if you're allowed to,
Yeah.
or selling into regions where the economy isn't booming, like Turkey at the moment, where you can't always you have a price point here, and that's some markets just aren't able to match that price point, even though they very much have the need for such a service as much as a customer in another country. So it's difficult. So I feel it really starts with market analysis and segmentation, Simon. I think, and this isn't something that we should have done. It's something we should always be doing. So, consistently running an analysis of the rapidly changing, forever evolving, EMEA market is key. In the last year, we've seen, as I mentioned, huge outside factors like the war, the disasters happening in some countries, economic challenges. So, consistently run analysis and looking to identify key segments, trends, opportunities, and then kind of trying to prioritize segments based on factors such as market size, growth potential, competitive landscape, and aligning that really with your company's strengths and capabilities. And I think that market analysis piece is foundational, and the first piece we need to be looking at. This will then very much feed into your target account selection. I've walked into organizations where they've just said to the AE, who do you want to target? And they haven't given them that support, that help to really identify. And the AE, who's probably been in this role 3 months, is only still learning the business, is therefore left trying to pick companies without any support or data. And we'll definitely talk about that a bit more later on, I think, in there. But for me, developing the criteria for selected target accounts within priority segments, is absolutely key. We want to be considering factors such as, company sizes, verticals, geographical location, any existing relationships we might have with partners or even competitors, looking at regional challenges. And then really, once we have an idea of our TAM and the targets that we can sell into, the accounts we can sell into, really beginning to run through a prioritization exercise where we're prioritizing the accounts with the highest potential for revenue generation, strategic value. That's absolutely vital. And so many organizations aren't doing this well. If you going back to that whole time thing, which I keep harping on around, if our AEs can spend our time this year focusing on the most appropriate correctly prioritized accounts, you can get double the results than you will by just allowing them to go chase what inbound leads are coming in, or just perhaps let's give them the data, let's empower them with the correct target account selection and TAM information, so we really can identify who are our priority accounts that are absolutely winnable. Let's spend our time in the right places. And I think let's leverage our data to do so, right? I think most companies I work for will have SFDC. And at Data we send in so many different verticals. So when reviewing TAM at the beginning of this year, we reviewed all our sales over the last 24 months in EMEA. And we looked at these, and then we break them down vertical by vertical and looked at data points such as deal velocity, ASP, conversion rates. And was that growing or declining over the last 12, 24, 36 months? And from there, this will give us a really good idea of who should be targeted into. And a couple of industries surprised me with how high their closure rate was compared to industries that I thought were, more bread and butter for us. And therefore, looking at those sort of data points there, we're really able to inform our AEs and say, look, guys, if you put your energies and efforts here, you're much more likely to win, and you're likely to win quicker, and you're likely to win at a higher value. And also, it's proving that we're selling to clients who have a real need for our services. So they're going to get much more value out of it as well. So our chance for renewals and long-term partnerships and just building great value for the customer, which needs to be the heart of everything we do, is really key. I think the last thing just to say about, and this ties into doing more with less, but also doing how to challenge the market. Let's not win. We don't need to win on our own. Okay, strategic partnerships and alliances can really help. I think there's in a world where a lot of sales teams are being reduced, we don't have the opportunity to speak into every single business we want to, and we don't have the time to prospect into every business. But if we combine with a few other partners, we do. And so strategic partnerships and alliances can really help. And I feel historically this has not been a focus on enough. And I won't. There's one organisation that I worked for. I won't mention which one, but their competitor was just awesome at partnerships, and those partners were referring. Referrals were coming in, mutual events together, And there was a reason why one company's path was like this, and the other companies both grew well, but one company accelerated very quickly. So I think cross collaboration with other partners and alliances can really help access new markets, share resources, refer and cross sell solutions in. I think if you're a business and you're looking at two different providers for the same solution, and you're already working with a partner who comes in and says, "Hey, we know these guys. These guys will do you a great job. You should trust them." That's going to go a long way. So yeah, in a large, ever-changing market, you don't have to do it on your own.
I think that partnerships and alliance piece, we're framing a few episodes around that specifically. I think I see, because I speak to lots of people like yourself, David, I see some companies doing this ever so well, and some companies doing it ever so badly. And you're so right. Like the kind of the force magnifier of like a great ecosystem sell. Like, I don't know what the metrics are around it, but it's really powerful. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to talk about that a bit more in a minute, but conversely, so we talked a little bit there about like the exciting opportunities with limited resources. Like, what are the major are there any kind of big pitfalls or mistakes that you're seeing companies when tackling the kind of the EMEA marketplace?
I'm trying to think back on a few key ones, or for sure. So I think the challenge so with EMEA is it is very fragmented and it's different, right? I think, for example, the way we structure our sales teams at Data AI is very different in America and the EMEA market than it is in EMEA, America, EMEA. So I think, and it wasn't always that way, but we've realised that's absolutely vital to do so, because every country, I guess it comes down to lack of local market understanding. There was a time, and when you're a startup or a new organization or even a mid-sized organization, you might not have all the resources in the world to be able to build custom approaches or custom marketing or for each region. But one of the most common mistakes is definitely entering the EMEA market without a deep understanding of those local nuances, cultural differences, regularity requirements, business practices. I think failing to adapt to local market conditions can be a real challenge as well. So we have definitely seen in some countries where the economy is struggling. I mentioned one earlier, that you just going in there with a huge enterprise sales pitch for hundreds of thousands, six-figure deals just isn't going to work. Because right now those countries are struggling, but we still need to help them. So we need to either come up with smaller versions of the product, perhaps, if we want to be successful in that, or if we don't have the resolve to do that, then perhaps that's just not a region or area that we can be focusing on. So once again, I think it comes back to TAM and understanding in EMEA, unfortunately, so because we don't have unlimited resource, where it's best to put our efforts in. We'd love to be able to address all of EMEA in exactly the same way, but that's not going to be helpful for us or for our clients. And I think that local lack of local market understanding sort of falls into a couple of other areas as well. It falls into poor localization. If you are going to start selling into another region of EMEA, then localization is really important. And actually, it's not a massively hard one to solve, but localization goes beyond just translating marketing materials and product documentation. It goes into adapting messaging, branding, pricing, product features. But those actually aren't too hard challenges. It just takes a bit of time, and time once again is the challenge to have that research to understand those as well. And I think two others that feed into each other, but mistakes that companies make, are insufficient investment in sales and marketing. I think I saw a post on LinkedIn recently, like targets are going up, but resources in terms of SDR and marketing are going down. I'm a great believer personally that when organizations are struggling, that's probably where you need to put your resource. SDR teams are phenomenal, great believer in those. Let's double down on marketing. I'm not sure whether it was an urban myth or not, but I remember being told a case story of back in a depression era in America, like there was Coke and Pepsi reduced their marketing, and Coke doubled down on it, and lo and behold, which is the bigger brand now. So I think making sure you've got sufficient marketing investment to grow and scale correctly, really. Hiring the right local talent, building brand awareness, generating leads, and you can only do that with the proper proper investment. So many companies make the mistake of trying to grow too fast, and we're seeing that with these redundancies, right? I think there was a time where you think, I've got 5 SDRs and 5 sales guys, and I'm generating X. If I make that 10 or 20, it's going to X or X, 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 X. But that's not the case. I think there was this area where every company was trying to grow too quickly, and now, unfortunately, poor individuals are being lost because of those decisions to grow too quickly and having their lives affected. And I think that comes down to probably the biggest challenge for me, which is short-term focus. Being a successful presence in the EMEA region requires long-term commitment and investment. If you're successful in the UK, but you want to start going to sell into Germany, that's not going to happen overnight. You need to have a long-term commitment and investment. And companies that have a short-term focus expect immediate results just because they landed a quick deal somewhere are probably become pretty discouraged pretty quickly when facing challenges or that sort of slow progress. So understand that these things are going to take time, patience, persistence, and a focus on building slow but consistent and sustainable growth is probably essential.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about, a lot of the great sales leaders in this space are big advocates and of utilizing different sales methodologies or frameworks. There's lots out there, but the one that I'm seeing a huge amount consistently across high performers is MEDERIC, and I believe that's something that you're trained in and utilize within your environments. Can you tell the people a little bit about that journey with it, and sort of how do you actually practically apply that into your teams and your kind of your workplace?
Yeah, I love MEDERIC. I'm going to talk about this topic all day long. Huge
Okay.
Actually, a very quick story. I know I talk on, but I'll make this very, very quick. I'd been, when I joined MarTech, I'd been through so many training. I've been through Spin. I've been through Challenger. Not a huge, massive fan of the Challenger sale always. I think that's you don't about selling people too much of the time, but you can work with them in different ways. And someone turned up at MarTech and was going to train us MEDERIC. And I thought, okay, I'm always willing, always open-minded, always happy to try something. And I liked some of the things, and they made sense to me. And we deployed MEDERIC at MarTech, and wow, did it change the game.
Really?
It really had a huge effect. And so now I'm such a believer on it. But I do want to say, for me, so I'm a huge fan of MEDERIC, but MEDERIC for me is absolutely not a sales methodology. It's a deal management and qualification tool. And A should be ensuring that and leaders should be ensuring that whatever methodology process we're using is designed to match what the customer, the market, the TAM, everything we talked about earlier. And MEDERIC should be a part of that process, because if we do, it'll absolutely boost your chances. As a sales leader, I personally use MEDERIC to find holes in the deals, and when we plug them, we win more. For example, when I first joined the organization, MEDERIC was here, but it wasn't installed as it needed to be. So the first sort of thing that we started doing was on every single deal review in a one-to-one, we'd actually take it a step back, because at this organization, at Data AI, there's so many different use cases for our solution. And therefore, the use case affects what the metrics are and the pain. So the first thing I want to understand from my AE was, tell me about the use case. This customer who wants to use us, what's their use case? Then from there, tell me about their metrics and tell me about the decision criteria. And I've had this at a few companies that I've worked at. I started hearing the same decision criteria. This wasn't at the current kind of reason. I started hearing the same decision criteria all the time. And what that told me is we weren't really asking the question. We were assuming. So we really had to work those MEDERIC questions into our sales, into our discovery and our ongoing discovery throughout the process, to be asking the right questions at the right time. And conversely to that, I've had one AE recently who's a phenomenal performer. And when you ask him in a deal review to take you through MEDERIC, the metrics, the economic buy-in, you get decision criteria, there's so much detail there. He won't just say, the decision criteria is perhaps accuracy of the data you're providing, price and usability. He'll rank them and actually go into detail of why they're important. And that's someone using MEDERIC really well. So it's not a case of, what are the metrics they want to affect? They want to affect conversion rates. Okay, but why? Why is that important? How are they managing it at the moment? What is that conversion rate? Where does it need to be? What's their plan to take it from A to B? So I think MEDERIC can be really powerful, but only when it's used properly. And sometimes you can see it's just not a box ticking tool. Like, what is the metric? What is the decision criteria? What's the name of the economic buyer? I don't want to know. Are we engaged with the economic buyer? Have we had a conversation with him? What's important to him? Is their budget at the moment? There's a very good company out there called MEDERIC, run by Andy Stone, and I think that there's some great content on their website as well about the questions to ask down to double down there, because I guarantee, I think we all know this now, that if we use MEDERIC properly, we'll win more. But I think it's on us as sales leaders to make sure that we're asking those questions and not just doing it at a superficial level. You know, the deeper you can take these things. We actually we've evolved it a little bit to match our company once again. First, you can understand for understood. So we actually use MEDERIC now, which is metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, decision process, and then risk. The R stands for risk. And I think the risk is really important because so that isn't a part of MEDERIC currently. And therefore, the risk could be, are they looking to buy with a competitor? Is there not a lot of budget right now? Is this project not seen as a priority? And it's really important to understand not just why we might win the deal through understanding pain and metrics, but also criteria, but also why we might lose the deal. And so that's something that we double down focus. I think in sales, we can often quite have happy ears and focus on why a deal will close. I see it quite a lot all the time. An AE will come to me and say, hey, I had a great call just now. They're definitely going to buy. 3 months later, we're not there, or we might lose it. And it's the case of, well, why wouldn't this customer buy from us? Why have we not demonstrated something properly? Have we not demonstrated the value? Have we not understood something? So MEDERIC can be really powerful on this. I think the last thing I'll say about MEDERIC, there's a really good study. If anybody wants to see it, drop me a note on LinkedIn and I can link them to it. But there was a study on the MEDERIC which analysed $37 billion of pipeline and $3.2 million of opportunity. So it was really robust research. And what it was doing, it was analysing MEDERIC traits across different AEs, top performers, medium performers, and bottom performers. And in the AEs, there is kind of what percentage of the different factors they were using. And it showed that AEs, the super successful AEs, are the ones that are heavily focusing on, in particular, metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, and identifying pain. So if there's whether your organization is or isn't embedding metric, and the next time we do deal reviews, I would highly suggest just working on your key deals with your AEs and just saying, what are the metrics, but not just one of those. Why are they important? What's their strategy behind them? Who's the economic buyer? Have you spoken to the economic buyer? Have you got time with them? Do you understand whether they deem how important your solution is to this organization? And what's the decision criteria? Rank it, review it. Why is it in this order? And I think you'll quickly see holes in someone's sales process if you ask those questions, but keep asking and asking and asking. And you know what? It just helps everyone if we do it. But as I mentioned above, let's do this in a positive way. I didn't see the value of MEDERIC initially until it started changing the game for me, and I was taught it in a positive environment that really helped. So yeah, it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's definitely not the way that you're describing it there is just creating a platform for everybody to win. You know, that's the name of the game, isn't it? You know, it's not finger pointing exercise, is it? It's just trying to plug the hole. So I think that's because some people describe it, you know,
helping people improve. Like
yeah, exactly.
Of this, yeah.
Yeah, and that moves on to the next question. Just, I mean, you built teams. You said SDRs all the way to enterprise or corporate and enterprise sales teams. Like across your career, how have you gone about identifying, attracting, retaining, and also importantly developing top talent?
I mean, identifying. Typically, I just call you Simon most of the time.
Thank you.
Actually, seriously on that one, like recruitment gets a tough name sometimes, but you and me have built a relationship over the last 8 years. I think, God, it's probably been 5 years since we had a beer together, but we've known each other for 8, 9 years. And because of that, you have an understanding of the kind of person that I want to work with, and the kind of person that's going to fit into my team, the kind of person that's going to respond well to my communication style, and I'm going to enjoy their communication style. And also, hopefully, I think because you know me really well, you're only going to put the best people in front of me. I know you only find the best people anyway, Simon, but you know we have that kind of trust and expectation from each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think when you can have internal recruiters, and they're phenomenal, and I have so much respect and value for them. But sometimes you do need to work with external recruitments. And my advice to anyone is, when you work with recruiters that you build good relationships with, just continue to work with them and develop that, because they'll just keep delivering time and time again. So yeah, so that's worked. In terms of attracting salespeople, I don't really want to attract anyone as such. I think that I'm lucky enough that I've worked for organizations predominantly that have had exciting brands or exciting offerings. I mean, who wouldn't want to go and work for Pop? That's a company that's pioneering a great retail platform for apps. I mean, that's a very exciting world, at least it is for me. Or working for Data AI, where you get to have a look at our customer page. The brands we work for are phenomenal, and providing the leading analytics and data. For me, that's very exciting in the tech space. But really, I think there are some companies out there that are kind of making promises and trying to attract people, and kind of over promising and under delivering. For me, once I get a talent or an individual human that we'd love to work with, I want them to truly deeply understand the role and what's required. I want them to really understand what they're walking into with no surprises. I want them to know what the good and what the bad is. And I think that's really important from day one. That will build an honesty and trust between the two people talking. And secondly, when that person comes into the role, it's not like, hey, this isn't what you told me. But I think we also need to really respect the human individual, right? I mean, I think it's just so important. These are people's careers and lives that we're playing with. They're not just a salesperson or an SDR or someone in marketing or whatever. They're going to we're hopefully working with us for 1, 2, 5, possibly longer years. I think it's really important that we're honest with them so they can enjoy what they do as well. These aren't just employees; they're people with lives, families, and we have a duty of care to look after each other in these environments, and that's mutual. And so there's many companies out there that are kind of selling the dream, and the reality is very different. I've had that happen once in my career, and it's not on my LinkedIn because I left after about a month, so there was no need for that. But what was sold was very different from day one, and actually even the attitude from the interview was all great, positive. I walked in there, and it was just a very negative environment. And I think I felt slightly jaded and cheated. I still do to this day a little bit. I've forgiven and gotten over it, obviously. But let's be honest there. As for retaining, I think people stay in their roles if they're earning, learning, achieving, and enjoying. So let's not be afraid to be honest and ask open questions about this in our one-to-ones. Actually, just a few weeks ago, my one-to-ones with my team members, we are set up for a phenomenal year at this organization. We really are. It's a really exciting time. We've got a brilliant team of AEs, some of the best I've ever worked with. So proud of them. And I just want to know that I can help and support them the best they can, and the business can help and support them the best they can. So in that call, I was very open and said, hey, I want you to tell me, honestly, frankly, warts and all, in a very open but fierce feedback style, of what's good and bad right now. It's how is the leadership in this organization comparing to leadership in other organizations? Where do you want more support? When you go home, what are you moaning or complaining about? What's unhappy with you? Tell me brutally. And honestly, Simon, some of the answers I got were great, and some of the answers I got, I was like, oh, okay. But by hearing that, I can be a better leader. And also, I'm getting ahead of any challenges or problems that my team might have, because I have such a good team in this organization at the moment that I don't want to lose a single one of them. So therefore, the only way I can keep them is by making sure that they are earning, learning, achieving, and enjoying. And we actually haven't lost a person in this team for over 2 years now. And in fact, the only person that we've lost was someone who moved to another part of the organization. So I'm really proud of that. And I think the longer you can keep people, the longer you can retain them, as long as they're keeping them motivated, happy, and enjoying the role, and as part of a great team, that's really good. So let's take the ego out. Let's not be afraid to. And I don't think I would have actually, as a human being, I don't think I would have been able to have the confidence to ask that that question 10 years ago. But I did it now. I'm glad I did, and it's only going to help me be better, which is only going to help my team be more successful, right?
And it's having that, I think, like through this, whatever it is, 50 minutes, shows that you're just, you're enabling people to be able to just speak openly without fear of how it's perceived. You're just asking the questions to discover, to be able to help. I think that's such a kind of such a rare environment, I think, from what I hear, which is kudos, absolutely, and that retention rate, I'm sure is paying dividends in terms of the performance
Yeah.
that will be coming from here. Yeah, so great. In terms of the technology, so like, obviously, I'm sure as a sales leader, I don't know if you're in charge of that strategy or spend, but I'm sure you get approached all the time about new tech, new shiny tech that may help you with whether it be TAM, revenue intelligence, whatever. Have you seen any really cool stuff, or do you utilize any cool stuff that helps you with the sales GTM?
I'll tell you about what we use quickly. A couple of things. Give you insights that I'm allowed to, but then also share one that I think is a couple of that are quite exciting
Thanks.
out there. So, big fans of Gong, Clary, and Aviso.
Okay.
My first exposure to Gong was just for listening to sales calls. And I think as you join an organization, I didn't just want to listen to sales calls. I wanted to listen to CSM calls, or I wanted to listen to existing business calls. One piece of advice for any new salesperson starting is don't spend your first few weeks listening to other sales calls. Listen to existing business calls, right? Let's understand how our customers are using us, their value that they're seeing. That's much more powerful than asking business questions initially. Let's do that understanding piece. And Gong allows you to do that. I was able to listen to, coming into Data I, for example, in my first few months here, many customer calls. And I would then, by understanding the value our customers are getting from us, I can then relay that to prospects. And that was very powerful. So I love Gong. Clary and Aviso are two awesome management revenue tools. Good revenue management tools will do so much more than just reporting revenue nowadays, right? Both of these tools, when integrated properly, will analyze all your deals that you've done today and give you pretty accurate chances of closing and forecasting. If I look at some of the spreadsheets that I used to build, I used to think that was one of my key most important skills, that being able to build awesome reporting spreadsheets. But I think the number of hours, going back to the time management I wasted on doing those, and now they're saved by tools like Aviso and Gong. But once again, like any tool, and then like a CRM, they do require an accurate data entry. So having stringent rules about how we use and do these tools can be really important. And I think the one that we use at Data I and that I love is Tableau. It's a huge tool. It can do so much, but data is just so powerful. And Tableau can just built correctly can tell you anything. For example, I mentioned earlier that I recently wanted to see all the sales from the last couple of years broken down by data points such as average sales value, conversion rates, number of leads, how those markets and verticals were trending, growing, declining. And we were able to build that in Tableau in no time. And that made my deciding on decisions on the 2024 strategy not so much quicker, but also I could sleep right, that knowing the decisions weren't made on what I feel could be right and could easily be, what happens if those decisions that I made were wrong? I'm affecting the business performance, my team performance. That would have been huge. But because I can now make this decision based upon real data, I'm sleeping pretty easy on those decisions. And I really feel the business is set up in its very best way. A couple others that I probably want to shout out really quickly in terms of tools that are really exciting. I was recently approached by Potion. Potion is a video prospecting tool used by top sales people at the moment. They eliminate the need to record multiple videos for each prospect. And I think in a world where we're not spending enough time face to face, even though we have Zoom meetings, and we're just getting in a world we're getting inundated with emails, the ability to have a video come to you and say, "Hey Simon, my name's David. I understand you're probably facing these challenges. Here's a quick snippet of how a solution helps this. Can we just jump on a call?" That I am much more likely to respond to that personally. I know not everyone is, but I think a lot of people are, than just a random email. And I think also it gives that human touch. You know who you're going to be speaking to. It's no longer just words on a screen. It's a human who's understood your company and researched it. And this tool particularly allows you to do this at scale very quickly. So by entering data points and using a bit of AI, every prospect's getting a personalized video. So I love that. That was a really impressive tool and one I'm excited to follow more. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, going forward, about more and more how AI tools come out and how they're affecting our typical working flows currently.
Yeah. Okay. Conscious of time, but let's whistle through these last few questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So you talked about partnerships and alliances. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that and how the impact you see that in modern day SaaS and MarTech.
Yeah, I think my message is you just don't need to go it alone, right? There's lots of brands out there that need our technology in their tech stack, and they need our other MarTech technologies in there as well. And I think sometimes, especially in the world where you're providing data, what data does at its sense is that it informs the decisions that you make. And some of the decisions that you make, you're going to be using other tools for. So therefore, or perhaps we work with some great agencies, the likes of Yodel Mobile. Mick and the guys over there are phenomenal, and so they use our tool to help inform their customers' decisions as well. So I think finding the right partners to work with at different levels can really help, and it can help in so many ways. I think, like I mentioned, the referrals earlier. I mentioned we're looking to run an event in April with a couple of companies that I can't mention yet, but that was just a simple case of picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, look. We do 3 different things that all help as part of that customer acquisition journey for our customers. So why don't we all get together and do a mutual event?" And all of a sudden, this event costs a third that it would do. We probably get 3 times the attendance because you've got 3 people working there, and everything's a win. And if we just done that on our own, that would have been 3 times harder work. So yeah, I think and building partnerships as well just helps in so many different ways. It can introduce you to other great salespeople. You can get together and talk about the problems that you have that are all facing. How have you overcome the current macroeconomic challenges that we have, for example, or how are you facing the recent upcoming changes to how data is going to be looked after by Apple and Android, for example. So yeah, just partnerships are hugely powerful. I think the partnership model is difficult because some companies have, and I've seen it in the past, they will have hired a partnerships manager, and this partnerships manager is supposed to just bring in leads and they're KPI'd on that. And that's a hard one to do, and it's a hard one to measure. But I think there's also a wealth of other benefits that a partnership manager, and there's some great ones out there who are doing more than just bringing in their leads. That they're using partnerships to build brands, to build relationships, to get into events, to get public speaking opportunities, to get referrals and references that aren't always trackable and attributed correctly and so it's a hard one to measure, but I think something that's really, really vital.
Your team that you've got that you're managing, are they based all over Europe or are they in the UK, or what's that?
Yeah, I mean, Data IO's team is all over Europe. It's all over
Europe.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do have a lot of people in the UK, but even in the UK, they're spread all over the place. I guess you probably got a reasonable percentage of the team based around London, but then, a lot of the team based all over the place.
Yeah, sure. So I guess with that in mind, you've talked a little bit about the culture that you still instill in the teams, but how do you manage to work with those teams in a kind of post-COVID dispersed working environment and drive results?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I kind of do miss those days of all working in the office together. I know that's not the working world nowadays, but those first 10 years of my career when I was getting up every morning, didn't love the tubes. I used to cycle into work in London, but I used to love getting so much out of the office. And I think working remotely today definitely has its challenges. And I personally think it's that there's definitely benefits to the individual, but there's also benefits to the individual. I think people look at the benefits from working from home, which is great. Your morning's nicer. Your commute, you're probably going to ill less because you're not doing all this commuting and your life's better. But also, I don't think we can ignore the benefits to individuals from how they learn and grow through working together in office and that collaboration. So you're right. How can we, in this remote world where we're probably never going to go back to a full-time office, not against that actually, but also very happy to work hybrid and remote as well. But how could we that's just my nostalgia thinking there, I guess, really. But how can we kind of foster that learning and values and the benefits that people had from an in-office experience? I think really it's fostering a positive collaborative environment is about clearly establishing goals and expectations. We want to be looking and making sure that everyone is aligned on what needs to be done. So that's where building great processes and blueprints of work, right? This is what your role is, and this is what you need to be doing. Because in an office, if it sounds awful to say, because I'm definitely not a fan of micromanagement anyway, but if someone's not doing what they need to do, it's very easy to sit down and say, "Hey, let me help you. We can do this." But very hard to do that in a remote world. So by building clear processes, clear workflows, so people know what they should be doing. I mean, I've had one or two roles when I was younger. I woke up in the morning, I'm not sure what I should do today. I'm in sales. Should I be prospecting? Should I be working on this presentation? How do I prioritize? What should I be doing? And I think, we need to understand that people have these challenges, so we need to be able to help them understand how best to use their time. I think making sure that we have really regular communications and check-ins, especially in this new remote hybrid world, is so important. Data AI is 100% remote, although we choose, many of us who work in the choose to get together in the WeWorks every week by personal choice. So, for example, you'll see me in the WeWork most Tuesdays and Thursdays. I choose to do it, I don't have to. But that's vital to fostering open and transparent communication channels. We get so much by sitting in together. But if not, just having those regular communications check-ins, regular virtual team meetings, one-on-one check-ins, town hall sessions to discuss progress, sharing updates, addressing challenges. And the format of those sessions is important as well. I think I mentioned one of the meetings we have is the team sharing their updates of who they're working on, how it's progressing. And then later in the day, they have a one-to-one with me where they share the same again. But that's not duplication, because the first meetings and them like informing the team, and the team often start helping each other out and chipping in and adding value, and by knowing what each other's working on. Because if you're in the office together, you know what everyone's working on. Everyone's at home, you've got no idea, and they might be working on a presentation that's going to take 3 hours, and hey ho, another AA had already done that 3 weeks ago, right? So that really helps. But also sometimes we have a couple of team meetings where there's just no agenda, and it's, hey guys, what challenges are you facing at the moment? And I like those conversations because some of my team know probably more about, because they live and breathe data in the platform and in the product than I do. Sometimes I can just let them sit back and have a great conversation and help each other, and I'm learning from them as well. And also, we have such a diverse team here. We've got people from many. We've got someone who's come from the SDR team into the team, doing phenomenally. We've got someone who's come from a Gartner, doing incredibly as well. So their experiences are so different. So just letting people talk as they've had how they would run the coffee machine or the pub after work back in the old days, being able to foster that sort of communication amongst people, good, honest, clear, where everyone wants to help each other. But that also comes down, I think, to hiring the right people. You want to hire people who want to be transparent, want to help each other. And I think making sure that there's a great book called The Ideal Team Player, which talks about hiring people that are humble, confident, humble enough to want to learn more, are hungry, they're keen, so therefore if they can learn something from someone else, they're willing to do, but also emotionally smart, where they realize that you can win together. It's a great book. It's recommended to me by the leadership team here when I joined, and I've learned a lot from it. I think that helped as well. I am a great believer in empowerment and autonomy. Let's build the blueprint, let's build the playing field, let's build some rules, and let's hand the ball to the team and just let them go do what they need to do. Let's but make sure we've got the metrics to sort of track that. Empower salespeople to make decisions and take ownership of their territories, accounts. I want them to be able to give honest feedback as well. And I think the last thing I'll probably say is rewarding success. The team here at Data I work so hard, and they do it with so much integrity and to such a high standard. So when they win, it means so much. It was truly earned. So therefore, I think it's great to acknowledge milestones, whether that be being in the company for 3 years or achieved a certain level of revenue, sales achievements, exceptional contributions through public recognition, rewards, incentives, award programs. But also let's personalize these recognition efforts as well. When I joined Data, after I passed my probation, my boss gave me a bottle of my favorite red wine, which I just mentioned once in conversation. That meant the world to me. But you know what? Yeah. That's not going to work for half my team, because most of them don't actually drink nowadays. So it's you need to understand your team and reward success. So for me, collaborating that team is just having good communication, make sure everyone knows what they need to do, and making sure we celebrate success and talk as much as we can.
Yeah, cool. And look, you mentioned there just about one of the books, or across this call, you've mentioned some really cool resources. But for any new sales leader or even just person in sales that's watching this, that's very thirsty to learn and keen to kind of work on their own professional development, is there any sort of communities, events, or resources that you would point them at to help them with that?
I think it's difficult because there's so many different ones for so many different areas, right? I know if you're an SDR, get involved in SDRs at London. I haven't been involved with them directly, But a couple of my colleagues, a couple of my friends, sorry, or peers, or Ben Smith over at Reach Desk, I know he raves about those guys, and that's really helped him accelerate his career, which is on a phenomenal fast track. And I think anything you learn in life has probably been learned before in some way. There are new things coming out for sure, but I like the personal trainer example. I flopped around the gym for 5 years trying to figure it all out. And I go home and I'd look at YouTube and I'd try and like understand that, and I'd read a book. And it wasn't until I got a PT who'd taken the same journey, and a couple of friends who in great fitness shape, and they went, "Oh, do this, do this." And I'd learned from other people's mistakes. So I guess if you're passionate about being successful in your career, I would search for these groups. It's a great one. Sales Confidence is a good one if you're further down your career line. SDRs in London is good, but there's multiple parts of these groups. Try them. You don't have to stay in them. But also, if there's and don't be afraid to ask for a mentor as well. I mean, Kelly Lowe and Dan DeCombe have been inspirational figures in my career, and David Parker as well over at Vocus. Those are three exceptional leaders. I'm lucky to work with a couple of exceptional leaders currently as well, who I hope I'll stay in touch with for many years. But don't be afraid to ask people because these people have been SDRs, they've been AEs, they've been sales leaders, they've been VPs of sales, and now they're CROs or CEOs. And great leaders will happily talk about their success, and they'll give you great advice. So you don't have to learn this all on your own. You don't have to do it on your own. Get parts of communities, find people that you work with, and ask the questions, and it would accelerate your learnings, and it will accelerate your earnings as well. Which obviously we do this for the love of delivering our customers the very best products, but it helps be more successful in that way to look after our families and friends as well, right?
Of course. Okay, great. Well, look, I don't know if you've seen any of the other episodes, David, but just to finish off, we've got a couple of quick fire questions just to, so it needs to be the first answers that come to your head, just to kind of get to know you a little bit better, right? Away from all of the kind of topic that we spoke about before. So without further ado, favorite piece of tech or app you're personally using now?
Tech or app, that's my favorite that I'm using now. Goodness, can I look at my phone for a second? Let's have a look.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I love the Reddit and the Audible apps. They're useful for me. I think I have a couple of good self-learning apps, which are quite useful as well. So for example, there's one called Nibble, which you can do like 10, 15 minutes days learning, and you can choose the topics, whether it's history, philosophy, or whatever, and learn from them as well. So that they're pretty cool.
Okay, cool. iOS or Android?
Both are equally awesome. I work for
Okay, cool. Night at the disco or night at the restaurant? Night at the disco or night at the restaurant?
Why not both, Simon? But if it had to be one, it's probably going to be the restaurant. But why not both?
Okay, cool. Favorite food?
Favorite food, Pan Asian cuisine for sure. Paired with a nice
favorite
wine.
movie. Yeah, favorite movie.
Favorite movie, True Romance.
Okay. Favorite place that you visited on holiday or just visited in general in your life?
That would probably have to be St. Lucia. And that was because it was a combination of a lot of hard work and achievement and saving for it, and an end of year PGI bonus that I took me and my partner away at the time, and that was just a really special trip. And need to go back there one day soon.
Yeah, lovely. If you were to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Humble, optimistic, and driven.
Cool. If you have one, what's your guilty pleasure?
Expensive red wine.
That's cool.
Yeah.
If you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
One superpower, what would it be and why? Goodness. Time travel.
Okay, cool.
I think.
Thanks, David.
When you ask why very quickly, I think every life would be interesting to go back and test, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Cool.
tried over again. Like we had two big decisions at the beginning of this year about which way to set up our business, and we've chosen one. And it'd be lovely to go back in a year's time, try the other, and see which one proved best.
A/B test. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. Hey, David, thank you so much for that. Like some amazing insight, and really appreciate you taking the hour, so to speak. So, I mean, if somebody wants to get in touch with you about anything that we've discussed today, what's the best way to do that?
yeah. I mean, always LinkedIn is a great first point of contact. I think I have a personal thing where I love a LinkedIn connection with a message. If I get connection
Yeah.
request, I'm going to look at that and decide whether to connect. If it's got a message, I'm agreeing straight away. So yeah, the best way to contact me is with the LinkedIn request and just a message, even if it's just a hi. Be great to chat sometime. I'm someone who loves to help and share. So if anyone's got any questions or anything, or even just wants to have a chat mutually, more than happy to.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Thanks so much again, David. Look, great to have you on the show.